Frank. Hi, everyone. This is Alex Raymond, Simulations Director for present day in MIMUN 6. And in this brief presentation, we'll cover the most important information you need to know to participate and debate in an MUN cabinet. We'll go through the generalities of a cabinet, what the standard debate procedure is, and I'll explain to you how debate flows and how interaction is managed among other cabinets and committees. So let's get started. In general, in the real world, situations arise that cannot be handled in the calm and methodical setting of a committee, which is why we have these bodies, these cabinets. They are government branches of the executive power in each country, which serve both as advisors to a head of government, which is a president, prime minister, or other figure according to the country, and as the heads of main departments or ministries within the government. Examples may include the Minister of Foreign Affairs, or the Minister of Finance, or a national security advisor, etc., etc., etc. These positions have a large influence on state matters, as they can sway policy making through their departments and exert a large leverage on the heads of government. So in MUN conferences, cabinets work, as I mentioned, as quick response bodies, in which, as you are probably accustomed to, delegates and chair members act as characters. The delegates will act as heads of departments or ministries, and the debate is led by the head of government and moderated by her or himself or some other high-ranking official, which will serve as the moderator. These two have chair ranking status and have the same faculties as the chair in a regular committee. By default, cabinets initiate the debate with a moderated caucus, and calling the cabinet into formal debate is at the discretion of the head of government. However, this is very unusual, as it is a much more intense and fast-paced debate. So if the necessity arises for a head of government to request formal debate, it is generally a consequence of very rowdy or unexperienced delegates. So as personally, it would not be usual for a cabinet to enter formal debate. So within this standard moderated caucus as the standard for the debate, delegates can rise two general motions. One is limiting debate within this moderated caucus, which, as there is no preset agenda, ministers or secretaries can enter timed moderated caucuses with particular topics to discuss. As an example, a 10-minute moderated caucus to discuss a recent news outlet, or an 8-minute moderated caucus to determine what information will be released in the next press conference, etc. The other general motion that is usually raised within the debate is a motion for an unmoderated caucus, which is the equivalent of a suspension of debate, as in regular committees, where the ministers can stand up, have much more direct contact, and is usually enforced to draft resolutions or directives, which are topics we'll cover in the following slides. Also, it is important to know that cabinets have no speakers list, so interventions are determined at the moderator's discretion. And although there is no set speaking time, one may be established by the moderator as he or she deems fit for the benefit of the debate. Now, at the center of the debate in the cabinet, we have directives and policy menu items. Directives are the center of how the cabinet will work, and they are, in essence, actions authorized by the cabinet, evidently with the approval of the head of government. These directives are the main way in which cabinets as a whole will respond to the general simulation. Most of the debate is oriented towards deciding what the state government will do next, usually as a response to an event or action undertaken by another government. The cabinet's decisions are expressed in these directives, and they should clearly outline what are the cabinet's intentions, how they intend to do so, what the expected results are, and who is to be informed. Examples of directives' substance are police or military action, censorship, internal or external communication with among ministers or within another minister of another cabinet, public service announcements, diplomatic invitations or requests, surveillance, among others. The other main actionable item within cabinets are policy menu items. These are particular powers which are attributed to each minister and are prepared for them by their respective ministries, commissions, or offices under a set of specified conditions. These conditions generally revolve around approval, as some of them require consent by 2 or 3 other ministers, or unanimous consent by the whole cabinet, or maybe they can be applied unilaterally without the consent of any other cabinet member. These policy menu items tend to be more unilateral courses of action and are used at each minister's discretion. As an example, or as multiple examples, we have the leakage of information to a journalist, or use force to stop riots, or make a deal with a foreign enterprise, incur an espionage to a foreign state, have a meeting with a minister from another cabinet, etc. These faculties vary according to the position of each minister, and as you would imagine, are very related to what department the minister is head of. Now, the actual debate in a cabinet, in contrast with a committee, traditional General Assembly, or any other committee of the United Nations, cabinet debate is usually much more fast-paced and mostly reactionary, as you will have regular news updates, usually through Twitter feeds, and constant cross-cabinet communication, which may be both written through directives or physical, which is generally carried out by ministers of foreign affairs within each country. Evidently, there is a lack of motions and speeches, which tend to make the debate much more slow-paced in a committee. Now, another important point is that the topics of discussion generally fluctuate. While a cabinet might be discussing a domestic issue, some event may arise which requires an immediate response from the cabinet, usually through a directive. So it is not unusual for multiple topics or issues to be covered at the same time by different collections or subsets of ministers within the cabinet. As you would have probably noticed, most of the discussion within a cabinet is directive-based or directive-oriented. And depending on the strength, the quality, and the clarity of the directives, actions will take place behind the scenes. And these actions are generally discoverable by one means or another by the rest of the cabinets in the simulation, usually in the form of some shocking revelation, and which this revelation will often require the other cabinet to react and change their plans. And this is the general process that continues through the duration of the conference. And cabinets tend to split and reach consensus and consolidate treaties and sign different conventions, or sometimes the situation might become so polarized that wars might be declared among countries, to the point that sometimes entire cabinets are obliterated. Sometimes cabinets decide to go off script and do something that traditionally you might have never imagined. So it is important to bear in mind what the extent, like how far you can go in the decision-making process. And obviously, the actual debate of a cabinet portrays much more realistic diplomacy. After multiple sessions, the debate may, in occasions, become very chaotic and uncompromising. However, external exchanges with other ministers, cabinets, or committees tend to be traditionally diplomatic. So that there is a very accurate portrayal of how actually diplomacy is made internally and externally. And of course, lastly, cabinets have the particularity of being loaded with cross-cabinet and committee communication. Generally, this is handled through, as aforementioned, through the Minister of Foreign Affairs or its equivalent in the country, and the routinary press releases that the press secretary or its equivalent will do at the end of each session or at a specific time of the day, and will let the press body know what is being discussed, which actions have been taken, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, there is also constant interaction among cabinet members and UN representatives in the Security Council, or with other heads of government, or with other agencies independent of the United Nations. And these are not exclusive to any particular minister. So with this presentation, we have covered the main points in a cabinet, and I hope this has been constructive and useful, and you'll be able to use this information in your debate in the conference. And thanks for your time.